Welcome to the Exponential Growth Podcast, where we demystify what it takes to break into tech. My goal is to highlight real-life examples of people with non-traditional backgrounds moving into careers they love, so you can too. Today, I'm joined by Mammadu Diallo, a former mechanical engineer. Something inspired him to leave that behind and move into the world of site reliability engineering at LinkedIn, no less. Mammadu and I joined LinkedIn at the same time. I've gotten to know him through our cohort syncs. Now, I should mention that he's a very serious person, but I'm going to do my best to bring him out of his shell so we can have a good time here and learn how he broke into tech. Mammadu, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here, James. Thanks for having me here. I'm excited.
Appreciate you coming on. So let's start at the beginning. Where'd you grow up?
Let's see. So I was born in New Jersey. I was there for about 4 years before we decided to move to Chicago. And basically from 4 years on, I was most in Chicago. I had a stint of Indianapolis for like 2 years, but otherwise just Chicago all my life.
Okay. Brothers, sisters?
Brothers and sisters. I have 4 other siblings, 2 sisters and 2 brothers. They're all lovely. Love them all so much. I'm the second oldest, first son, which in some cultures is a really important thing. So that's why I say it. But otherwise, it's not that important, I guess.
I'm the oldest of 3, and I can appreciate my brother being in the middle. He doesn't let me forget it. So I can appreciate your situation.
Apparently, we inherit everything. I don't know. So I'm not sure if that's true or not. We'll see.
I don't know if that still holds water, but like you said, we'll see. So growing up, your family, were your parents, were they understanding? Did they let you experiment, play around with stuff, learn different things, or?
Definitely, 100%. One experience I really remember as a child was taking apart a computer with my dad to figure out how it works. And I remember spending a lot of times asking him, what is this? What is this? I think I asked him, what is RAM at least 10 or 20 times because I didn't understand, like, why would you need storage and RAM? Like, why do you need both? That
Sure.
took me ages to understand. But once he finally was able to get it across to me, I think I just lied and said I understood it because I don't think I actually understood it for like another year after that. But that was a really like one of the core memories. I feel like just working with my dad, building stuff and learning things from my mom, doing math and science from mom. Because when we're doing homework, we don't understand 2 plus 2, she's gonna get angry. So I got really good at understanding how to do math before she got angry.
I get that little extra incentive from mom.
Oh yeah, thanks, mom. I got through because of you.
Look at you now. All right, going on to high school. Did you play any sports? Were you in any clubs, activities? What'd you do for fun?
Ooh, high school. I did football freshman through senior year. I did track freshman through senior year. And I did a math team sophomore through senior year. And of those 3, I'm not sure which was the hardest. I want to say maybe math team was. There were some smart kids in my high school. I went to a magnet school, so they were just really just brilliant people there. Football was fun too. There was an issue where I was reckless with my body. My shoulder, every time I go into the game, I would take a hit, dislocate the shoulder, roll around, pump back in. It took me until senior year until the coach realized that is not normal, that I shouldn't be doing this. So I had to stay out the last couple of games.
Okay. What position?
That was fun. I was I played mostly the guard or the tackles on offense. And on defense, I played the nose guard or the outside defensive tackle, I guess, right? As you can see, my football experience was very much hit the guy in front of you and think about everything else afterwards. So I wasn't the smartest guy on the football team, that's for sure.
I think I played for 1 season, and that's got a great big asterisk by it, Mammadu, because I broke my pinky and absolutely nursed that. I was too nice to play football. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That was not my thing.
You seem like a nice guy, so I'll believe it. Was it jersey finger? Did you like try to tackle someone? And
pinky
like,
finger.
Actually, pinky finger.
We were playing catch on the sidelines during either a scrimmage or a game, and yeah, it was broken. That's true.
I remember one of our teammates, like someone got a touchdown on our team. Another one of our teammates was jumping in joy and elation, and I think he landed on his ankle badly and was out for like next couple of games. And I'm pretty sure this was our starting running back. So it was kind of funny, but things happen.
There's a life lesson in there somewhere.
I guess don't celebrate for your teammates. I don't know.
So tell me about this math team, because I don't think I've even heard of that. So is that you're solving complex calculus on the fly without writing anything down? What is that?
I think as a senior you'd be doing calculus, but freshman, sophomore, senior, junior, and senior would have like a special subject. So it was like, I want to say algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, which is like trigonometry, and then pre-calculus / calculus as a senior. So they'll just give you a problem, and they're different formats. Right? There's one format where we'd go to a room, we'd all solve problems on a paper for like an hour, and whoever gets the highest score as a team wins. There's one format where you have 8 people working together to solve this word problem. So different people take different parts to try to solve it together. There's even this relay race format where everyone gets their own problem, but the answer for your problem is, I guess, a given number for the next problem. So if the first person's wrong, doesn't matter. The entire team will be wrong. But if maybe the third person's wrong, then only the last person will have a bad number, right?
Okay.
We did go downstate. That was cool. Our team was hot, I guess. Walter Payton was a really strong school. We had some really great math teachers, which I appreciate that, the fact that I was able to get those kind of the math education. I just remember the pressure of, man, if I get my answer wrong, I've messed up the entire rest of the team. So that was tough. But I definitely learned a lot about math, and I learned that I am relatively capable. Again, those are some smart kids, which definitely made it hard for me, but or maybe hard for me to think that I was as good as them, but I think I was okay. I'm just comparing against like the best in the city. So
you sold me. You made it sound fun. I kind of wish that I had been on the math team in high school, but I'll live vicariously through your story. So on to college. I noticed that on your LinkedIn timeline, you've got mechanical engineering at Northern Illinois University from 2011 to 2016. Now, I know it took me 8 years to get a 4-year degree, so I'm curious, is there any more to this story than just a bullet point?
Well, I went to a magnet school. I took AP classes. So I had, I think, physics, I had calculus, I had stats, and I had chemistry all knocked out. So theoretically speaking, I should have been able to finish in about 3 to 3.5 years. But I was not great at studying. I just kind of went through tests in high school. I didn't have to like study too hard. I didn't do great in high school either, right? But in college was when I really realized that doing the homework and practicing is really, really important. And it took me a couple of years to really understand that. I had a lot of late night smash weather sessions that really kind of hampered my ability to go through college. So yeah, engineering stuff took me 5 years because of me growing up to like be more studious and having to take classes again and again. It was a lot of grit because there were just some classes that I just didn't think I would understand. And some classes where I learned so much, but there was no curve. I remember in one exam, it was I want to say 2 or 3 page exam. And I didn't realize it at the time. I went through the first page, finished that, got everything correct. It was a perfect first page. Then I turned the page around and I'm like, oh, there's another page. Oh, I failed this exam horribly. So I flunked out of that class that semester. That was one of the professors that I think definitely taught the most. Professor Pullman, if you're hearing this, you're an awesome professor. Tests are kind of hard. I think you need to curve that stuff, just being honest. But you're a great professor at teaching. I learned so much from him.
Feedback is a gift.
Yes. I'm 0-3 with that professor. I think I took him 3 times, and every time either I withdrew or I failed. It was partially because of my lack of studying or my inability to study properly. So that was really why it was like an extra year. But I learned a lot, went through it all, and I was able to actually graduate and get a job not too long after. So God bless.
We've got similar stories with that, which is funny because, like you, I never worked in high school. Getting relatively decent grades in all honors classes, got to college and realized that you couldn't continue to fluff your way through that experience. But unlike you, I turned fully to gaming and whatnot, and it took me a long time to right that proverbial ship. So kudos to you for turning it around pretty quick.
Everyone's on their own journey. I understand it, man. I understand 100%.
It's the journey, not the destination, right? All right. So during this time, you mentioned you got a job. Before we get there, so you're studying mechanical engineering. Was programming ever on your mind? Were you doing any of that on the side?
So I actually did a little bit of programming my senior year of high school. One of the other students who was like a computer whiz kids did a seminar on basic programming with C#. So that was my first exposure. Made a CLI game it was like a very simple RPG where you are attacking something randomly. It was kind of fun. In college, I had an intro to C++ class. That was a more in-depth review, but a lot of the concepts from C# in high school transferred over, so it was not that bad. It was pretty solid.
Okay.
And I definitely noticed when I was doing both of those coding courses that I was actually able to sit down and really focus on a problem. And I was actually engaged. I remember over winter break, I want to say in high school, I was sat down and just coded things out. And I didn't have to, like, I didn't have to try nearly as hard, but I was genuinely interested in solving these problems and I was genuinely engaged. So that's kind of when I knew that I could see coding or computer science as a thing. Just to explain why I chose mechanical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
I took number theory in high school, and that was the first C I took in a math class. So I was like, all right, math is not going to be a major for me. I did electricity and magnetism and physics in high school too. And I didn't do as well on that AP exam as to compared to the mechanical portion. So I thought electrical engineering isn't for me. And I thought that maybe physics would be interesting, but mechanical engineering was where you actually make money, is what I understood.
Mm-hmm.
And computer science was even on the radar. I just thought it would be like something I could do. Maybe I could do robotics as a mechanical engineer or whatever. So
Yeah.
I took mechanical engineering.
Okay.
If I were to do it again, it would probably be computer science or electrical engineering because those seem to be more along my line. But back to your question, was I exposed to computer science? Later on, I had numerical methods with programming, I think was the name of the class. It's basically you're doing a bunch of linear algebra, but using programming to solve it. By one of the professors, Professor Kohler, he had this game called, I can't remember the name of the game, I won't lie, but he programmed a game where the students want to like make their own program to interact with the game to get like a rocket ship to fly. So that was another cool exposure to programming. Yeah. I don't think I ever got it. I never figured it out. I won't lie. It was tough. And again, I was not that studious. I was probably playing too many games. Okay. But that was a good class. There was an Arduino course where we had to make our own robot follow a line. That was awesome. One of the best exposures to programming. I think there was a robotic manipulator class to figure out if you want to get a robot hand to this location, how do you move all the joints to get to that location, or is that location something that is actually impossible to orient the hand towards? So a lot of cool electromechanical and numerical methods kind of programming in college.
Yeah, no, it seems like you were blessed with a lot of exposure, which is awesome. So you mentioned you get the mechanical engineering degree and then you start your first job. Is that at National Power Corporation?
Yes, sir. We made battery packs there. That was my first exposure to engineering. Some cool things that I didn't realize from college. I thought with college, you were going to do all this crazy advanced math and science. I learned that, at least in National Power, a lot of engineering is literally just opening up Excel, doing a bunch of basic calculations to prove that everything is going to fit into like a specific dimension, tolerance stacks, basically. A lot of 3D modeling. I didn't realize how important making your drawings through 3D modeling is. Mm-hmm. That is the output for a lot of mechanical engineers. A drawing or a model so that something can be made. And then figuring out how to make it easy as possible for an operator to make this. Because real people are doing this, so doing simple operations to make your device, and they'll be doing it for an extended period of time. Yeah. And repetitive motions that seem okay once or twice can be quite bad. Like imagine doing this for your wrist for 8 hours. You're going to have some wrist problems probably, you know, or like having to reach up over your head. You want to make it as ergonomic as possible. So learn a lot about making everything as communicable as possible and working with the operators to understand what actually is their problem. What do they actually need? Like just getting the voice of the customer, whether it be the operator or the actual customer. That was cool. I don't think I was built for it. I won't lie.
No? Why is that? Too repetitive?
It was a bit repetitive. Another issue was that there weren't many people to learn from. My manager did do mechanical engineering, so he was like the best bet, but he's also my manager and he also has other things to take care of. So he can't baby me. Mauricio, if you're hearing this, you're great, little aggressive, I won't lie, but you understood that. So
feedback is a gift.
We fired it and he talked about it, yeah. But I learned a lot from the guy, so power to him. There's another electrical engineer, Jason Fugelside. He was also amazing. Learned so much about electrical engineering. I almost thought I would just switch to electrical after working with him. Yeah. There was a point in time where all of us engineers were fed up with ridiculous. I feel like it was just tight deadlines and expectation to work a lot of hours combined with pay that we thought was too low. So one engineer who was like kind of my same age, graduated the same year, just left, right? Left in like, it was surprising. And then the electrical engineer left, the supply chain engineer left. And I was like, if they're leaving, I think this is a sign that I should probably be leaving too. And I also wanted more pay and a job that gave me more engineering experience or engineering mentorship. So I left not too long after. So I did a year and a half there.
And then on to Pentair.
Yes, and on to Pentair. Turns out a lot of the things I didn't like about National Power, mostly just the monotony of National Power, in fact that you're doing a lot of Excel and not as like high level engineering. That's the same with Pentair. Like we're paid to solve a specific problem. So you have to get good at solving the specific problem. And as you develop and show that you're able to solve the basic engineering problems, you'll get given more and more interesting tasks. But a lot of the communication, Excel sheets to build the materials, the directing of the operators of how you want something to be made, a lot of the little management things you have to do, that's gonna just come with the engineering job, at least in the manufacturing sense.
Right.
And I don't think I enjoyed that aspect because like I thought I began doing cooler, higher level stuff. But honestly, it's just as much part of being an engineer because I imagine even here as a software dev, you're probably going to still deal with that management or not man, but just people skills and talking to others and coordinating. That's a skill that I realize now that I have to get good at. Like it's gonna follow me. But I do think the turnaround to see how your design works or the speed of doing design or how much logical work you do is higher in software engineering than mechanical, which is I think the biggest reason why I wanted to go from like a manufacturing mechanical engineer to a software because I get to like apply higher levels of logic and intuition and reasoning.
Yeah, quicker feedback loop.
Yes, and it's a quicker feedback loop. Like the time to get a piece from design to production is on the order of months to years, right? I remember doing a design, like actually I think I have it here. Let me see if I can show you. This probably won't exist in the podcast, but
this will translate well.
There it is.
What is that, a spinny top? It's probably a more scientific name than that, I would imagine. I was not an engineer.
It's a filter cap that goes, so Pentair was for water filtration, right? So this cap here goes onto the top of a water filter or a carbon block and gets sealed up in an aluminum can. And then when you put this into a head, basically water goes in, well, normal line water goes in, clean filtered water comes out. I was just designing this piece to make it faster to manufacture on the line.
Okay.
And instead of having multiple pieces, now it's just one piece. So just removing extra plastic that we don't need. Cool things, right?
Yeah. Speaking of fast feedback loop, so I think I saw that you were at Pentair for 3.5 years or thereabouts.
Yes.
So at what point therein did you decide that you wanted to be a developer?
So October of 2020, it was near the end. I think I think I was just burnt out because we were working in this project. I don't think I believed myself. I still had major bouts of imposter syndrome there. And B, I was just tired of the work. So I almost quit right then and there. My manager managed to convince me to stay. And in hindsight, I should have just quit because a year later, I was in the same bout. Is it an October thing? I never thought. Maybe I was just like seasonal. Maybe I was just sad from like being fall or something. But it was also like me being in my room for the COVID pandemic, and I'm realizing that I'm doing something I don't care about for years. Like, why am I spinning the wheels on something I just generally
I'll add a quick data point to your story. It was October of last year that I had the same realization and gave a 30-month notice and left that job. So 30-day
notice, right?
Yeah, 30-day notice. Yeah. No, 30-month notice. I was not that gracious.
30 days is pretty good though.
Yeah.
That's impressive. I had to give a 1 week notice both times. I was just kind of just done with it, which is not the greatest. I wish I could do better next time, but it is what it is. I've seen other people do less. I've seen people do 1 day notices. So I mean,
no, that's right.
It is what it is.
So at this point, were you looking into this Quasar boot camp that you attended?
So my good friend Hyro, one of the engineers that worked at Pentair with me, was also, I think, jaded and done with the job at the time. He wanted to go to this boot camp called 42, which is in the West Coast and in France.
Oh.
I think there are actually some apprentices here at LinkedIn that were part of 42. One thing I noticed that if you see a 42 kid, they're really, really
that's what it means.
Smart.
I'll stay away from them.
Full of 42. Yeah, they're dangerous. But yeah, Quasar, he told me about Quasar because it was made by one of the founders of 42.
Okay.
And it was for COVID, I guess. So I said, F it, I'm kind of sad and I'm kind of jaded. And I've kind of been enjoying this a little bit. I was doing my own Python coding to implement more stats into my job
Okay.
because stats is really important when you're doing testing, and we never had good. I wouldn't say we didn't have good stats. I would say we never had enough samples to perform statistically significant tests at Pantera. And that's because samples are just hard to make. So we had to like work with little data to make big decisions, which can be scary, but I think they'll figure it out. Marcus McCloud, Ruben Deal, you'll figure it out. There's smart engineers there.
What kind of Python resources were you using there?
There was this EDX course that you could get for a lifetime if you just sign up, like $200. It'll teach you. It was supposed to be stats, data science, and machine learning.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. I got through the Python part, and I was really comfortable with Python. That's, I would say, like my main language. Didn't make it as far in the stats and data science section, and I got a little bored. I won't lie. It was a little. I love the course though, so I'm thinking that would be a good way to use my education time.
You spent $200. You may as well get the most out
I
of it. Right?
did, and it's a lifetime. I could do it. I should just do it because I think the lifetime thing made it easy for me to say I'll do it later, and later just became never. So I should definitely get back to it. It's on my to-do list.
So back to Quasar. Isn't that a supernova or something like that? What does that stand for?
Great question. I don't think I've ever gotten an answer from the founders, but a quasar in real life is, I want to say, like the matter around or circling in black holes, like the bright stuff going around the black hole. Think Inception, right? Like that black hole, the bright lights. So I'm guessing you are the black hole absorbing all the knowledge, and all that knowledge around you is the quasar. So maybe it's just the knowledge you're absorbing to become like this supermassive black hole. Yeah.
So I think I looked at their site and it looked like tuition was really competitive. It looked like you could sign up for one of their programs for $2,400. And I don't know if that would take you from 0 to 1, but what was your experience with that?
Oh, I see. 2,400. Okay, competitive as in like other boot camps are like
25.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Quasar is a boot camp, but I'd also think of it as a subscription, at least the way I was introduced to it, where you basically just pay $100 per month. What do you get with that $100? You get a community that are all trying to get into coding, and I think that was actually one of the biggest parts. Like to this day, I have other Quasaries hitting me up asking me how to handle this interview or advice on a specific technology, and even I myself use that network to ask how to handle interviews or what is important for a full stack product, or how do you go about reasoning for a full stack product. And that was super beneficial. So community is huge. So that's one thing you're paying for. They also have a list of programs or like a track, basically a guided track to teach you these are the concepts you need to know. It's very much product based. So you'll spend time, a little bit of a boot camp where you learn about basics of JavaScript or the basics of Bash or the basics of C. Then they give you a bunch of projects that will teach you a variety of programming or computer science topics. For example, I started off learning Git because everyone needs to know Git.
Yes, we do.
And that was good. A little bit of JavaScript, just the intro, which was just the intro to programming to get you familiar with it, because JavaScript is probably going to be a lot easier to get into than C. And a lot of web dev, which is, I think, a very plentiful job space, requires JavaScript.
Did you hate JavaScript being the Python guy?
JavaScript is just, you get a lot of weird things, like weird results that you don't expect, and then it takes you hours to fix it. So I remember I was working on this problem where I was trying to get the width of a box, right? It was a box, maybe like a window frame or something. And I was looking at the styles. I was like, get this style plus another data point or another integer. But then I learned that when I was getting that style, that variable from the style section, it was a string. So like I had quotation marks, I was adding it to an integer. So I was getting some crazy results because I was never explicitly told that I was adding a string in an integer. And from that point on, I hated JavaScript. I was like,
true story.
I don't hate it, but I mean, have you not experienced that yourself? I feel like that's a very common experience where you just add things that are not the same type. And you're like, why isn't that not working?
You had a better story than I can come up with on the spot. I think when I did my boot camp, I too was more familiar with Python. And when I got to JavaScript, I approached it with a different appreciation to, I guess, manipulate things on the front end in conjunction with the back end. But yeah, I mean, I definitely messed up string concatenation, but I guess it never derailed me completely or made me hate the language, so to speak.
This is one of the beginning. It was like an early
Okay.
exercise, and it took me like 2 or 3 hours to figure out that I was adding a string to an integer. So that from that point on, and also I think one of the mentors there was continuously bashing on JavaScript. I didn't understand
Mm,
why until that happened. I was like, yeah, I'm all on the hate JavaScript. It's
peer
useful.
pressure. Got it. Okay.
A little bit of now
All right. So you were a mechanical engineer. You did the boot camp and the community. How did you actually break into tech?
So one of the founder of Quasar, or one of the like the head honchos of Quasar, told me about this apprenticeship at Eighth Light, and I was at that time fully committed. Like October 2021, I actually quit the job and I said, you know what, I'll give myself a couple of months till my money runs out, my savings run out, find a job. My friend beforehand said he did this. He did the same thing. He found the job very quickly. So I was like, if he could do it, I could do it. This is Harrow I'm talking about. Not to say that I'm better than him or anything, but like he believed in me. He was saying like, "Yo, you're not happy. You just quit your job and find it." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, you're right. I should leave." So he told me about this apprenticeship. I applied. Then I went to Guinea for like a month, but they came back to me and said that I made it to the next round. So you need to do. It was very much similar to a Reach apprenticeship
Okay.
application, where you put in your application, write an essay about why are you doing this. To give you a take-home problem that you have to solve. I think this one was just using Google Books API and making a very basic front end.
Okay.
Then they asked you to extend it. And for me, it was just adding testing because that was my first time actually using testing. Then they just review your application and see how you understand the concept, why you made decisions, and how you take feedback. And finally, you have to do a presentation on an object or some kind of subject matter. I think it was very fair because it was very much like we know that people talk about degrees and leak code. Can you actually build a project and explain your thought process and reasoning, which I very much
100%.
appreciated. So I actually got the job. I was super ecstatic, super happy. I was like, oh, I got my tech job. And I did that for a few months. Around the time I got the job, it was February 2022. And I applied for LinkedIn because then I didn't have the job locked in until I think after I applied to LinkedIn. LinkedIn took quite some time. Love you, LinkedIn. I'm glad for the
No, they
job,
did.
but
They did. I'll back you
they
up on
did,
that one.
right?
They did.
I didn't hit that I made to the next level until June, right? So from February to June, that was the gap. When I was expecting, say, March or April, that's when they officially said, we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
So just June, I'm already like, I didn't get the job. I'm working here at Eighth Flight.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
This is what I got. Who cares? I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then they get back to me, and I have to do the same loop of talking to people, getting a take-home project, implementing the take-home project.
Talk about that for just a second, if you will, because I don't think we've talked about like the reach process. If you just want to explain the initial filter, then the take home, and then the interview.
Yeah, for sure. So, of course, the first step is really just the essay part. That was not the easiest because it was a good amount of writing. Like I don't think other apprenticeships ask for nearly as much writing as the LinkedIn apprenticeship does. Fortunately, another plugin for Quasar, they have this group where you can work on interview practice or work on how to get a job. They provide that as a service.
Nice.
So they got a good amount of help from them on how to apply. On the outline of like, you have all these story points, right? Like, this is how you can probably organize the story or think about all your projects. You're showing this skill, this skill, this skill. Highlight the fact that you are showing this skill. So shout out to Quasar again, because I didn't think about it that much back then, but it really was an integral part of, I think, why I got to the next level in both Eighth Flight and LinkedIn. But back to LinkedIn. You do the essays. That was fun. I had a side project on the side, so I was able to highlight that, which I think really helped out. Afterwards, you wait to see if they get back to you. They'll give you a take-home project. This time was Mastermind, but I think it probably changes from cohort to cohort. Based off of the track, you have to extend the project a little bit. So for SRE, we had to implement some kind of logging. I think UI, UX had to do some kind of front end, some kind of website. And I'm guessing back end was add a database. you did that back then. What was it?
So I don't know that it's that discrete. My understanding is it's a little more ad hoc. I know probably because my code base was so big because I spent like 90 hours putting that thing together and trying to make it so
You
finished.
wanted that job, I see.
I did want that job and so glad that I got that job. We spent the full 2.5 hours pretty much just going through the code base and talking about design decisions, I guess. I don't think I actually implemented a feature. I could be wrong, but I don't think I did. I got lucky.
Yeah, that's good. That means you had like a lot that was working, and you probably had like all the good solid principles. And what other abbreviations for good programming are there?
OOP. I don't know if it was good, but it did the job. It served its purpose. Here I am.
I think if you did like some basic solid OOP, maybe a design pattern. I remember trying to implement that, and then some phantom testing. You were
Oh yeah, definitely.
probably those are the things I consider really important. And I think
Yep.
that for even for eighth Y, I remember like those are the things I made sure to really focus on because that showed like you the fundamentals of
Oh
how
yeah.
to make program. But yeah, I did that. We did the interview after that, like the actual in-person interview. We talked to an apprentice to get their understanding of what reach is, talked to a
Yep.
manager, and I learned a lot about the culture of LinkedIn, which is
Yeah.
pretty good. They gave me good signs. And then, you review your take-home project. They showed me some cool insights into my take-home projects. One issue I had was that I was logging whether or not connect to the random API website. But the way I was doing it would, I think, required to make me to do 2 requests. And that's when I realized that requests are pretty expensive and a lot of latency is just literally sending a request and getting a response back. So figured out to make it not as don't make as many requests.
Yeah.
When it came time to implement it, though, that was kind of fun because I think I was spending so much time just explaining the logic that I kind of froze up a little bit. So I spent a lot of time just saying, getting the voice of the customer. So like asking the interviewers, is this what you want? Give me more detail. Basically like writing it out. And then I actually started implementing it. But by that time, I
Yeah.
think I was fried and I was going so slow. I was like, what is a dictionary again?
But you got the job.
I got the job. It was like I think a day or two, or maybe a week after, something like that. But I
Oh
figured
wow.
out after that, and I was like, "Yes, I did
Yeah.
it! I'm so happy."
I think they left me hanging for at least 2 or 3, if not 4 weeks after that. Yeah, my wife and I had our child. I was unemployed, twiddling my thumbs, getting ready to go back to my boot camp. But thankfully, LinkedIn did call back and everything turned out great in the
Oh
end.
man,
So
that's
it was
tough.
fun times.
So you actually put it all on the line, then, right? Like that.
I did
That's
sink or swim.
trial by fire, my man. I respect it.
I appreciate that. Let's back up just a little bit. So, interviewing. A lot of people are scared about interviewing, or they don't understand, or they want to better understand interviewing. Obviously, you got the LinkedIn job. We've talked about that interview process, but interviewing in general, what did you learn?
Man, I learned that there were a lot of things I don't know. How do I say this? Show off the basic core fundamentals of programming. Like I said, like solid, OOP, testing. There was another one I can't remember. But just show the most fundamental things. Like show that you know how to use like how loops work, how to not make a loop get too nested, because the more nesting you do, the slower it is, you know.
Yep.
If you can, optimize it, but of course, get it working first. That was actually a big one because we had to do some of the interviews I had were just HackerRank or Amazon. I applied to Amazon at least 4 times.
Their loss.
Yeah, they're tough. But there's a lot of questions about leak code S questions. And of course, you want to make it optimal, but always focus first on getting it working,
Yep.
then making it fast.
That's
So
right.
that took me a while to understand that I don't need to be as optimal as possible at the beginning if it's too hard for me to understand. So there's that. Also, you get a lot of practice answering behavioral questions. And honestly, those should always be a freebie. I actually have like a spreadsheet of like just very common behavioral questions. And I think about how my job experience leads me to answer those questions. Because for the most part, you can take the same situation and use it to apply for so many different behavioral questions when you just change the angle or how you spin it. So you're really just trying to tell a story. And I think having that down pat, like knowing your stories, makes you at least skip that first part. Because that first part, if you're get that shouldn't be a hurdle for you, I would say. I feel like
Yeah.
you should always be able to like get past that first part after a certain number of interviews.
That's awesome. You got a system for the behavioral side. I like that. I'm going to see if I can get that from you and share it if you're comfortable with it. So that's really cool.
For sure, yeah, I'll let you know. And once again, Quasar was like really helpful in like saying these should be freebie. You should like have these ready to go because like they're gonna come up all the time. So
Do I need to put a disclaimer that Mamadou is a Quasar associate or affiliate, or this is just genuine appreciation?
I'm genuinely appreciative, and I love the community.
Yeah.
every so often, I try to hit them up. Even, I want to say, last time I was in the Bay Area, I was actually able to meet the founder, Gaetan, and one of the other head honchos, Jennifer. So they're really cool. And the
Yeah.
whole community across the United States. So I love the guys.
That's great that you have that experience. I'd never heard of that program, and I'm glad that you're shedding light on it so other people can have it as a potential option. That's really cool.
Yep.
Did you have any horror stories from interviewing? Anything that you'd like to share, or did everything go perfectly because you've got these systems in place?
I don't know if I had anything extremely horrible. I do recognize that there are a lot of projects you get asked to do. So definitely focus on things that are high value for you because you can't always do all the projects. And a lot of the projects do require a good amount of time. Like for Eighth Light, I spent like roughly a week. I probably could have done it faster, but like, yeah, you have a life too, right? So it was about a week on that project. LinkedIn was roughly the same. Again, it's not like it needs to take a week, but like you want to give it like a good
Oh
amount
yeah.
of attention to make it as good as possible. So when you're getting a lot of interviews that require projects, really pick and choose like which one do you want to do, or figure out which one is a better fit for you. There's a couple of C projects that seems really cool for a gaming company, but I also recognize that I'm okay at C++ I'm not as familiar with, and it would take me time to understand and learn and build the systems because I just don't have nearly as much familiarity. So I was just like, I won't pursue that nearly as hard when I have these other interviews coming in. So that was important. Also, just basic computer science stuff. People complain about leak code all the time, and I see why because like I haven't had to do any kind of leak code style question in a while, but
Yep.
I do recognize that when you get better at leak coding problems, you get better at making it so that your programs are more efficient and timely. So if I'm doing a bash script and I'm recognizing that this program is taking too long, I can go in and say, hey, I did a double or triple for loop. How can I make that not as nested? Or maybe if I reduce the number of if statements, I can make it so it's easier to maybe use a state design pattern and so on and so forth. There are lessons you learn from solving those leak code problems.
Okay. A lot of advice, but no horror stories. You're not going to share anything. You're just the perfect interviewer.
I mean, I botched plenty of interviews. I mean, I remember there's one interview that required me to, I think, implement the Java API, and I got the basic API part because I've done it in other languages, so I got that. But I didn't understand Java enough to like make the rest of the program. I
Yep.
think I had an issue where I was trying to do like a try catch, like similar in Python, but
Yep.
the scoping of the variables made zero sense to me and I couldn't
Mm.
figure it out. So that was embarrassing. I think if it wasn't for that, I was fine because I figured out
Okay.
the hard leak code tile problem. It was literally just doing the API kind of stuff and I just couldn't figure it out.
Okay.
There was another one where I had to implement, I think, a Spring boot, a full stack program in Java with Spring. And that was, again, I realized basically I don't know Java. I should take time to learn Java because I tried to learn the entirety of Spring Boot and Java in like a week. And I was just like, I don't understand anything about this. I can't just learn it in a week. So if you don't know Java, I mean, if you don't know the language, recognize that you're putting yourself at a handicap. If it's JavaScript or Python, you might be easier. And I'm saying that I'm kind of biased saying that because I had experience with that.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to learn C or C++ or Java and you don't never touched the language, good luck is all I can say because it wasn't easy for me. It was difficult for sure.
I'm glad to hear that you're human and you've shared some real life horror stories in the interviewing that other people might be able to relate to. So that's cool. So you're a mechanical engineer. Now you're a Reach apprentice SRE at LinkedIn. What's a typical day in the life of?
It varies from day to day, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to set up my schedule to work best for me. At this point, typically I just wake up, I try to work on my OKR, which is basically like your goal for the quarter for anyone who doesn't know. When that could be something you like studying the topic. Right now, I'm learning about garbage collection for Java, right, for a tech kit of mine. It could be actually implementing it. So weeks before, I was building a dashboard and alerting system, trying to make it so that the developers can get the logs from the hosts using our system called Kusto. So you usually spend time doing OKR work. Then there's stand up and there's the stand up, right? We describe what we're working on, what we plan to do, and then we go over the alerts that happened the last day. So as an SRE, a lot of our job is to make sure that the site is up and the site is reliable. So whenever there's an alert, we go over it as a team to say what's going on, triage it down, give each other a task to solve the alerts, and just share knowledge so that when we go on call and things are breaking and all hell breaks loose, we have the knowledge and know-how of how to deal with it.
Okay.
So there's a lot of that. Sometimes it's just automating repetitive tasks. I remember I built a couple of scripts to ping multiple hosts. There's probably a program for it, but I didn't like the way it worked. So I made my own scripts. And
Nice.
then there's another task I think I've tried to make a bunch of tickets. So I made a script to do that. There's a script to see how many tickets are there for different hosts. So different small scripts to make things easier for myself. Hopefully, I'm not reinventing the wheel, but I have to double check because sometimes you don't know that there are easy solutions until someone says, "Why are you doing it the slow way?" I
Sure.
remember actually at my job at Pentair, I'm using Python to organize, to look up one sheet and then do a calculation for another sheet. I spent a day or two on it. And then one of the operation managers says, "Have you heard of VLOOKUP?" And I realized I invented VLOOKUP. So
Nice.
it's a little sad.
You should have patented that. I think the VLOOKUP will do pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. If only maybe there's a better version called like extreme version like XLOOKUP that can do like other kind of stuff. But we'll see. That's
Nice. Let's do some rapid fire. I want to throw you on the hot seat and better
okay.
understand Mammadu psychology. So, first question, what does your morning routine look like?
I wake up at 5. I hit the gym pretty much. No breakfast, or maybe it's a caffeine pill and a multivitamin. Do my whole workout. It's like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Go back home, take a shower, eat breakfast, log online. Usually I'm online by like 9:30 in the morning.
I like it. So far, everybody I've talked to has some version of exercise and whatnot. So I like that. Very cool. If you woke up with unlimited money, what do you think you would do every day?
Oh, unlimited money? Well, I probably wouldn't work for anyone. That's, I have money to provide for myself. So that way I can focus on the things that I really care about, which is getting back to the video game roots I have, getting good at a video game, like being number one. Or maybe
Okay.
even working out more, like spending time like focusing on a workout plan. But it'd probably be one of those two. I probably wouldn't be working unless I
I like it.
want to study something.
All right. Without going down the rabbit hole, what video game would you become the best at?
Project M, which is a Smash Brothers mod, or Smash Brothers Ultimate, probably those two. Maybe League of Legends, Rivals of Ether. Those are the ones I'm probably going to focus on.
All right. What books or podcasts have had the biggest impact on you?
I remember reading the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And for a little bit, I had it in my personal, I guess, value list where I just say, read the habits. And I don't know if I do it all the time, but I do recognize that some of these habits are important. Like, put first things first.
Yep.
Put things you actually care about in the beginning as much as you can, because that's when you have the most energy and the most focus. Things at the end can often be forgotten, which is why I
Yeah,
always put abs at the end of my workouts. Because
they could be forgotten. No, that's a great book. Any podcasts?
let's see. I remember reading or listening to Revolutions by Mike Duncan, and they had this podcast about the Russian Revolution where they talked all the way about Communist Manifesto and Karl Marx
Okay.
until Stalin takes over. I have to finish the last couple episodes. I haven't gotten to Stalin yet, but that was kind of cool, very educational.
Nice.
From a more coding standpoint, there's Code Newbies, which I learned about recently. It's really
Okay.
cool. They teach you a lot about a lot of people's different routes through code. You should probably listen to it. You might get some inspiration of who to
Yeah,
do
no, I'll definitely
something.
check them out.
It's pretty cool. Other than that, just like the daily Vox News, Freakonomics. Amazing. Love Freakonomics. You learn a lot of cool things from there.
Okay. I'll have to listen to each of those. All right. Tell me about the 2 or 3 most influential people in your life and how they impacted you.
So many influential people. Like the easiest one would be to say my parents, because there's that constant influence from just being near them.
Yeah.
But I think that's easy. Apart from my parents, I guess I'm thinking maybe from like school
Sure.
or work. There's one professor, Professor Falahi at NIU, and I was having a crappy semester, didn't do things well, and I missed my one-on-one with the professor to like figure out my next year's schedule. So I came into his office and we talked about what I'm doing, and he said, "You're a very good student, Mammadu. You participate in class. A lot of people didn't participate in class because issues of Falahi I won't go into. But he told me he believed in me, and I
Mm,
was feeling down the dumps, and I just needed to hear that.
Yeah.
So just having him say that really just like really helps me out. Whenever someone tells you they believe in you,
Oh, yeah.
that really boosts you. She's like, I don't have to believe in myself. I can believe in Professor Falahi that believes in me, right?
Yeah.
So that to this day, I still remember that. That was like, it was a small word, but it made me. I really needed that at that time. So thanks, Professor Falahi.
Awesome. No, that's great. We appreciate Professor Palahi as well for helping you get where you are. All right. If you could send one single message to your former self to help during your transition into tech, what would that be?
Ooh, trust your gut. That last year you were working, you were pretty much burnt out. You knew you were burnt out in October 2020, so it's okay to trust your gut and take the plunge. You could do it. Just believe in yourself.
Yeah. Time's our most valuable resource. Believe in yourself. I like it.
Yep.
So what's next for you? You going to work your way up the LinkedIn SRE ladder, conquer the world?
At this point, that's the plan. I like LinkedIn. It being a social network provides a lot of computer science problems to solve.
Yep.
And I see that there's a lot to learn here at LinkedIn. Plus, I haven't seen a workforce that is as happy as the workforce here at LinkedIn. So I think
100%.
I'm going to dig in, try to get promote or reach, maybe even go senior, and then see what happens from that point on. But I think this is a great opportunity for me to learn as much as possible here on LinkedIn. So
Yeah.
I'm here to stay.
Yeah. No, the culture was the biggest unknown for me when I got here. And I just, yeah, we're so blessed to be in the company and the culture that we have. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about or anything else you think that people considering a career transition into tech might find useful?
One thing I wanted to bring up is that the tech world is just a different universe from a lot of other workplaces. Like I remember working at Pentair and then switching to like Eighth Flight. It's so much more relaxed, at least in the last couple of years before these macroeconomic things happened this year. It was very relaxed and very chill, and they're all invested in learning. So I think if you are willing to invest your time in learning and really invest in yourself, I think you will have a good time in tech. One of the things I noticed for sure, at least from the Quasar bootcamp, is that the people who were most willing to like put the time into it got the most out of it. You only really put time, you only get what you put in, right?
Yeah.
So be willing to put your time into it if you really believe in it, and you will see the results.
Yeah. Put in the work. Beautifully said. Where can people go to find out more about you?
Oh man. You can get me on LinkedIn. I think I'm LinkedIn.com/Mammadu Diallo.
I'll do you one better. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, please, because I don't recall. I'm on GitHub, but I'm not crazy active. If you want to see what I'm working on, it's small projects here and there. Just keep on working on projects, right? But those are probably the big spots. Honestly, LinkedIn is probably the best spot to hit me up.
All right. Well, Mammadu, thank you so much for taking the time to tell your story. You're a living, breathing example of how you can do anything you set your mind to. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you, James. You're an inspiration. I see you hustling out here. So glad to be here.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Exponential Growth Podcast. If you enjoy this conversation, be sure to follow the show on whatever podcast application you use. Just search for Exponential Growth, How to Break into Tech. If you got value from today's show, consider leaving a 5-star review. And most importantly, if you know someone that might be interested in breaking into tech, tell them about the show.